safety. But before we start, I would like to review this system with you. As you can see, we have a chat bar on the side. You can type in any question as we go. We will take all your questions at the end. With me today, I also have our component chairperson of the Communication Committee, Dominique Lavoie, who's here to assist me with the system. And so we're going to talk about your rights, your fundamental rights for the health and safety. We're going to talk about their structure. We're going to talk about the health and safety local committees. We're going to talk about the PC committee, and also we will touch the cosmic radiation. So we will take your question at the end. So before we start, I would like to introduce you our newly elected Air Canada Component Health and Safety Committee chairperson. He brings a wealth of knowledge. He has been working on the health and safety files before. So please welcome Jordan Bray-Stone. Welcome, Jordan. So maybe Jordan, you want to walk us through our rights first. What are our rights under the Canadian Labor Code Part 2?
Okay, well, hi everyone. My camera keeps zooming in and out, so if my face gets really huge on the screen, my apologies. It's not my doing, it's the computer. So maybe the computer thinks it's something super important, it's going to zoom in. I'm just going to open up there's a slideshow that I'm going to use for the presentation. If you're following online, you can zoom in on the PowerPoint presentation. You just take your cursor and put it on the top right-hand corner of the slides, and you will be able to expand it, which might be useful for those who are following online, because it might be hard to read the writing. So just a quick introduction of myself. I've been involved in health and safety for a couple of years. I started, I guess, in 2010 at the Montreal local. And then about a year later, half a year later, I transitioned to the policy committee level, and I was a member of the component health and safety committee as well. And we're going to be looking at the structure of all those committees in just a few minutes. Then I took a bit of a break. I came back on the line for 3.5 years. And I rejoined health and safety in May 2015 at the Montreal local once again. And then kind of the same story. I jumped ship back to component and the policy committee 6 months later. So this is round 2, but it's not my first time to the rodeo. So let's dive in. Something that I always talk to employees about when we're looking at when we're talking about health and safety is the fact that you're protected, and you should never feel scared to exercise your rights or to report things. When we talk in our recurrent training, we're usually focusing on SMS and our what's in our manual, and they talk about non-disciplinary, non-punitive policies. So they say report anything, and you'll never be in trouble as long as you report something and you try to do the right thing. That's under the safety management system, which is under the Aeronautics Act, but we operate under the Canada Labor Code in health and safety, and it functions in a very similar way. So on the slide that you see right now, it's a paraphrase of what's actually in the Canada Labor Code, but basically anybody who's acting in good faith and in accordance with their rights, but also their responsibilities under the Canada Labor Code is protected from disciplinary action. You can't be docked pay because you reported something and a manager doesn't like that you reported it, for example. You can't be subjected to any kind of discipline. You are protected because it's one of your obligations to report things and to follow what's written in the law. Something that's also important to note is that it's always as long as you're acting in good faith. So keep that in mind. That's a very, very important thing when it comes to the non-disciplinary policies in the Canada Labour Code. You have to be acting in good spirit. If you want to look at the actual language, it's in the Canada Labour Code Part 2, which you can just Google it. You'll find it in 2 seconds, Section 147. And it's actually, it's quite a bit longer, which is why I didn't use the exact language on the slide today. You have 3 fundamental rights when it comes to health and safety as a federally regulated worker. You have the right to know. And what that means is you have the right to know about anything that might affect your health and safety or the health and safety of anybody else in the workplace. And you always have that right. There is not a minute that exists where that right is not applicable. You always have the right to know. The right to know goes hand in hand with your duty to report anything that might be a danger or a hazard in the workplace, and to follow proper workplace procedures. If you don't report things in the workplace, the employer can't let everyone else know about those dangers and hazards. Okay, so it's a two-way street. We report things and the employer lets the rest of us know. That's the way it works. You have the right to participate. Now, participation can be direct, or it can also be through your committee, your health and safety committee. So direct participation is when you go and you speak to your supervisor to raise a health and safety concern. It's also, for example, in a work refusal, it's direct participation. You're there, a manager is going to be there, and you're in the thick of it. But sometimes you submit a health and safety concern and you want it to ultimately go to the health and safety committee. And that's where you participate by allowing us to represent you at the health and safety committee and look into your issue. And lastly, you have the right to refuse dangerous work. We're not going to get into that in detail today, but that's another important one. And there's actually, we plan to put out a series of bulletins explaining the right to refuse dangerous work. We did it a few years ago, and it's time for it, a refresher to be sent out. So look for that. But just remember, you always have the right to refuse work if you feel like your health or your safety is in imminent danger. And you have all the steps. You have a flow chart at the back of chapter 2 of your SEP manual, which you always have with you at work. So those are your 3 fundamental rights, and they repeat themselves throughout Part 2 of the Canada Labour Code. And just remember them, because sometimes we forget that we shouldn't feel scared to ask, what was that noise, or go see a manager and say, why is this procedure happening? It's good to do that, and it's your right to do that. Now we're going to go into committee structure. Now, a lot of people don't realize that there is a health and safety committee at the union. And then there's also 2 different levels of committees at the company. So what we're going to talk about first is the union health and safety committees. So the slide you see in front of you, if you're following online, shows the component health and safety committee. We have the president, Michelle, who appoints a chairperson of the committee, which currently is myself. And sometimes there would be a vice chairperson. Currently, there's no vice chairperson, but there can be in our bylaws. And then we have in our committee bylaws members from each union local that are currently we have the members listed for the Montreal, Toronto, Calgary, and Vancouver mainline locals. I also have Rouge on the slide. It's not yet determined who's going to be the health and safety reps at Rouge, but they do form part of our committee. So when we do know who those people are, they will be joining us as well. So the representatives, the chairperson and the member, alternate member at each local, joins us at the component level. And what we do is we share conference calls a couple times a month, and we meet in person once or twice a year just to touch base and create a situation where we're one with all the issues that are happening across the system. We have a big country, we have different bases with different realities, and it's really important that we have a network so that we don't lose sight of the problems that are happening in Calgary, for example, just because Toronto is so enormous. It's important that we take into account the issues that are affecting each base, and that's why we have this network. It's so that we're all on the same page. At the company, we have health and safety committees as well. Now, these are different. These are joint committees that are structured under the Canada Labour Code, so they are required by law, and they are joint with management. So we have a committee at each local base. So that's what you would know as your local health and safety committee. There's one in Montreal, Toronto, Calgary, and Vancouver for mainline, and you have your CUPE reps that are listed there on the slide on the left on the top, and then you have your employer representatives on the bottom. So, for example, in Montreal, we have Jenny Renaud and Julie Dallaire-Bourget for CUPE, and Véronique Amar and Robert Christodoulo-Poulos for Air Canada. And we also have a sort of an umbrella committee that deals with system-wide issues called the Policy Committee. And for CUPE, we have each of the base co-chairs and myself. And then Air Canada appoints their own representatives on that committee as well. And the Policy Committee doesn't control the local committees, and the local committees don't control the policy committees. That's why on the slide you see arrows going back and forth between the two. We have different roles, and we support each other, and we share information with each other.
Jordan, maybe you want to name who are the members, because we have lots of members that are calling in on their mobile device and they are not necessarily seeing your PowerPoint presentation. But maybe you want to introduce who are the chairperson of each base with their representative.
Yes, that's a good, thank you, Michelle. It's easy to forget that we have people calling in. So sorry for those of you who are. So in Montreal, like I said, for CUPE, we have Jenny Renaud and we have Julie Dallaire-Bourget, who are the CUPE reps. For the company, we have Véronique Amar, who's the safety manager, and Robert Christodoulo-Poulos, who is an operations manager in Montreal. For the Toronto base, Tamara De Madalena is the CUPE co-chairperson, and she works with Guillaume Jean. And then for Air Canada, we have Anthony Turzo and Hope Kirk. For Calgary, the CUPE reps are Nuria Colabrado and Stacy Corbet, and Tracy Ibbett and Brenda Babiak are the Air Canada reps. And then for Vancouver, Ray Chang and Sandra Hendry are the CUPE reps, and Brenda Babiak and Anthony Turzo are the Air Canada representatives. So those are the local joint health and safety committees. Then at the policy committee level, for CUPE, we have myself, Jordan, Jenny Renaud, Tamara De Madalena, Nuria Colabrado, Ray Chang. And then on Air Canada's side, currently, we have Véronique Amar from Montreal, Joseph Donato, Brenda Babiak, Vesna Markovina, and Jingru Yan. And they have been appointed for various reasons by the employer to represent the company on that committee. The local committee, like I said, has a different role than the policy committee. So for those of you who are following online, you have the actual roles as they're stated by the Labour program, Labour Canada. But basically, the local committees take health and safety complaints that are submitted, or concerns that are submitted by the members where they haven't been satisfied with the manager's response, and they investigate those. They also participate in investigations when there's an injury that results in a book off. And they also jump in at step 2 of work refusals. So if we just go quickly through the list here, they consider health and safety complaints. Like I said, when you submit a health and safety concern, they participate in inquiries, investigations, studies, and inspections that have to do with health and safety. They monitor programs like protective equipment. They participate in the hazard prevention program at the company, which monitors known hazards in the workplace. And they help implement changes that affect occupational health and safety. Sometimes we will be working on projects, and each of the local committees will play a part in implementing them at the respective bases. And lastly, a really important part of the local committees is they do monthly workplace inspections. So sometimes you'll see your health and safety representatives going around the airport. Maybe they're inspecting the bridges or the comm center, or you might even see them on board an aircraft. They might just be getting off before you have your briefing, and they've just been checking the workplace, just doing basically spot checks to look for safety hazards. And that's a very important part of their role. When we get to the policy committee level, it's different because we're like the big umbrella. So we're like a bit behind the scenes. We're not the front line. And the policy committee deals with the development of health and safety policies and programs. That's where its name comes from. We also deal with issues that just are raised at the committee level by the members. So sometimes when we get together from all over the country at the policy committee level, someone will say, I think we should discuss this because at our base, at our committee, it's an issue. And it's a forum for us to have people from all over the system to discuss whatever might come up. We also participate in the development and monitoring of the hazard prevention program. Like I said, the local committees also participate in that, and we participate in inquiries, studies, and investigations as necessary to do our work. So it's a little more high level. At the local, they're able to kind of get their hands dirty, stick their fingers in the mud, and actually interact with all of you. At the policy committee, we're a little removed. So what do we do as employees to participate in health and safety? Reporting hazards is one of our obligations under the code, but it's also a right. So under the Canada Labour Code, you can report a hazard or something that you think is dangerous in the workplace by submitting a report. But if you want follow-up on it, you can also enter into what is called the internal complaint resolution process. At work, we all know this as writing a health and safety concern to the employer. And what that does is when you write a health and safety concern to your manager, you're not only reporting something, but you're asking for a response. And they have 30 days to get back to you to try to either answer your question, or if you're actually reporting a problem that you think could lead to a danger in the workplace, they have those 30 days to try to resolve that issue with you. If you don't get an answer within 30 days, or if you get an answer but you don't feel like it actually resolves what you reported, that's when you have the ability under this process to refer your health and safety concern to your local joint committee. And that's where your QP reps come into the picture. All right. So once you refer a health and safety complaint to the local committee, what your reps do is they open a file at their monthly meeting. Now, there's at least 9 monthly meetings that happen per year, but there can be more. And at those meetings, your reps will take all of the health and safety concerns that were referred by employees, and they will open files, and then they will jointly investigate it. Sometimes that involves contacting people in other departments. It could involve talking to an expert, going physically to the place where that is referred to in the report, if it has to do with an aircraft, for example, and looking at it. There's all sorts of things that the committee will do to investigate your complaint, and they will have to come to a determination as to whether the complaint was justified, which basically just means is there a hazard, or was there a contravention to something in the Canada Labor Code, or not. And then they will respond to the employer, but also to you in writing. So you'll get an answer as to whether there was a violation of the Canada Labor Code and whether there was a hazard. And they're also going to, if they did find that one of those two things occurred, they're going to respond with how it's going to be fixed and when it's going to be fixed. What the committees might also do is they might make recommendations to the employer with suggestions about how an issue can be resolved. And the employer has an option to accept those recommendations or not to accept those recommendations. And usually your committee will talk about that as well when they respond to you in writing. And at the end of that whole process, if you still aren't satisfied when you get your written response from the committee, you also have a right under the code to file a complaint with either Transport Canada or Labour Canada, depending on the issue. And then a health and safety officer with the government will review it one more time and make a decision. And they have the power to, if they deem it necessary, force the employer to take further action to resolve whatever issue you reported. So the slide that those of you who are following online see right now is talking about that step. If you want to refer a complaint to the minister, it happens in 3 steps, in 3 situations. If the employer doesn't agree with the results of the committee's investigation, so the employer can disagree. If the employer doesn't inform the people who investigated the complaint of how and when it will be resolved, or fails to actually take those steps. Okay, so if your written response says that XYZ is going to be done by March 30th and come October, nothing's happened, it's your right as the employee to make a complaint to the government. And a complaint can also be made if the people who investigated it at the committee don't agree between themselves if the complaint was justified. Sometimes that's what happens. It's a committee, and sometimes the CUPE reps and the employer reps don't agree. And sometimes we do file a complaint with Transport Canada to seek resolution. I'm going to move on to injury on duty, because this is something that at the committees we have noticed is sometimes misunderstood by employees, and it causes a lot of headaches. Obviously, we hope that people don't injure themselves, and that's part of our role as health and safety reps. It's to prevent injuries. But when injuries do happen, it's important that everyone know what to do. So the most important thing is to properly report injuries. If you feel like you may have hurt yourself, you're working on board and you pull something in your back, and for a moment you go, ooh, I felt something funny there. It's always best to fill out a report. Grab one of those forms from the flight satchel, bring it with you, fill it out between flights, get your in charge to sign off on it, or at least a witness from someone else who was with you, and to submit it to the employer. Because sometimes the types of injuries that we get on board, you really only feel the full force of them a couple days later, especially when they're muscle injuries. So reporting is the first step. And then identifying something as an injury on duty is extremely important, especially when it's something that's disabling, like you're going to have to book off because of this injury. So when you call Chappelle, when you talk or deal with crew sched, it's very important to say, look, this happened because of something at work. I injured myself on the plane, let's say. And then also when you consult a doctor, it's very important to specify that it's a workplace injury. And we always recommend that people see a doctor as soon as possible. You'll see on the slide, it says ideally within 24 hours. And that, it doesn't mean that if you go see a doctor a couple days later or a week or two later that you can't claim workers' compensation, for example, but it lends credibility in the eyes of a government administrator when you have gone to see a doctor soon afterwards. So we always say a rule of thumb is try to see a doctor within 24 hours. If you can't see your own physician, go to a walk-in clinic. Do yourself a favor. It may just simplify the process for you down the line. Now, there's lots of paperwork. Make sure you fill out the right paperwork and submit the forms that you need to the employer. And you'll see there it says claim in your province of residence. And the reason that I put that on the slide is because generally workers' compensation boards will pay for your physio, they'll pay for medical diagnostic procedures, all sorts of things, but only in the province where the claim was made. So if you're Toronto based, but you actually live in Montreal and you file with the Workers' Compensation Board in Ontario, you're going to end up having to drive across the Ontario border every time you want to go for your physio sessions, unless you want to pay for them out of pocket. So that's an important thing to consider when you actually make a claim for an injury on duty with the government. If you're injured on layover, a lot of people forget that we have insurance with the company and they take care of our medical needs while we're away. It's Mondial Allianz, and the number for them, it's on the pill. It's in Aeronet, but it's also in Globe. When you look at your pairing for destination information, you'll see the Mondial Allianz information, and they will schedule transport. They will schedule medical appointments. They'll send a doctor to your hotel room if you can't actually get up. So it's really important to remember that we have that. And lastly, CUPE has workers' compensation specialists at each base and at the component level to help you navigate the process if you're injured at work. And that's a huge resource. It's amazing that we have it, and I encourage everyone to use that resource that we have, because it can be very confusing, and they're there to help you. So make sure that you use those resources if you need them. It can be very overwhelming, and they can really simplify the process, and they can help you if your claim is rejected. They often know the ins and the outs of the system. So give them a call if you ever injure yourself on duty. I'm going to move on to my last slide here. I wanted to talk about something today, not just the structure of the committees, but also touch on an issue that affects us in health and safety, and something that we have talked a lot about on the line as employees, and in the union as well, is cosmic radiation. So today I'm just going to touch on some very key points and try to encourage all of you to get involved and inform yourselves a little more about your own exposure to cosmic radiation. So cosmic radiation isn't just the cosmic rays or solar particles that we're exposed to at cruise. We actually are always exposed to it on the ground as well. It's just in much lower levels, because we have the full benefit of the atmosphere to shield us, and of the Earth's magnetic field. So we often think of cosmic radiation only affecting us in the air, at cruise altitude, but it's always affecting us wherever we are. There's also background radiation that a lot of us don't think about. So that's the first item that you see on the slide. And background radiation, like I said, is also cosmic rays, but we get background radiation from the ground, which can be due to the presence of minerals in the vicinity where we live, such as uranium, but it's also radon gas, which is often present in basements, depending on the period of construction of your house and where you live in the country. And then there's other background exposure that we get through things like medical diagnostic procedures. So we don't often think about that, but there's lots of ways that we are exposed to radiation on a daily basis. Cosmic radiation, what we normally are thinking about, like when we're flying, it's affected by altitude. It's also affected by the Earth's magnetic field, the solar cycle, which runs on an 11-year cycle of highs and lows, generally speaking, and solar events. So there can be solar flares, and interestingly enough, solar flares can increase the level of cosmic radiation we're exposed to, but they can also actually decrease the level of cosmic radiation we're exposed to. It all depends on the type of solar flare and how it affects the Earth's atmosphere and magnetic field. So that's a nutshell about our background radiation and cosmic radiation. When it comes to our exposure to it and monitoring that, generally speaking, internationally, it's recognized that there's 3 different levels of exposure. There's 1 millisievert, which is the limit that the average population should be exposed to on a yearly basis to any kind of ionizing radiation. And then for people who work in an environment where they're exposed to radiation, there's 6 millisieverts, and that's called the intervention level. And then for people who work in the nuclear industry, there's a maximum of 20 millisieverts that they can be exposed to in any given year. For us, we generally focus on the 6 millisievert level. And a couple of years ago, we at the union started looking into having a monitoring program for our flight attendants. This had been going on in Europe for many years. It's actually legislated in Europe. All flight attendants, all flight crew get monitored for their exposure to cosmic radiation. But it has so far just been a kind of suggestion of the regulators in Canada that this be done. So the union started looking into it. What ended up happening was the company entered into an agreement with a company called PC Air to monitor exposure of flight crew at Air Canada. And this is a very useful tool that a lot of people don't know about. I was actually just asked about this the other day at an event, and someone was asking about dosimeters. And I said, well, you don't need a dosimeter because we have a free tool that's very accurate, that's available online, called PC Air. And basically, it tracks your exposure to cosmic radiation for every single flight that you do, plus it tallies a yearly average on a 12-month rolling 12-month basis. And this is something that we should all be looking at. It's accessible on EPUB. If you type in PC Air in the search field, for those of you who are calling in, you aren't going to see what's on the slide. So go into EPUB and type in PCAIRE. It's not spelled air like we'd normally see it. It's AIRE. So PC Air. Or you can go to aircanada.pcair.com, and that'll take you directly to this company's website. And basically, the login information, it's all there. You go in, and you'll be able to see how you're being affected by this radiation. And right now, what's happening at the company and your health and safety committees is when people are approaching that 6 millisievert level, they will be getting letters from their managers explaining that they're getting close and suggesting that they come in for a meeting to discuss their options. And there's many different ways of reducing exposure. So we encourage all of you to actually take your managers up on that offer and go in, if you do get one of those letters, to explore how you can reduce your exposure. It's really important. It's your health. So we encourage you to do that. So far, your QP reps have been invited to those meetings as well. So you won't be going in alone. You will have a familiar face there. And also, I wanted to say that, when we go back to the background radiation, for those of you who are concerned about this, and we should all be concerned, it's worth it to invest in a radon test kit for the basement, because that can actually, radon gas can be 20% of your yearly exposure to radiation, and it leads to lung cancer because you breathe it in. The test kits are very cheap. They're $15 to $30 at a hardware store, and you just place them in your basement, and depending on the kit, you wait a certain number of days, and then it either tells you that you have it or you don't, and then you have options, and the kits usually have an explanation of how to reduce exposure at home. So that's another easy way to reduce your yearly exposure to radiation that doesn't even have to do with flying. So moving on, the last slide that I'm showing today just talks about two other issues that we're working on at the union that I will speak a little bit about, and I think Michelle will touch on as well. So one of those issues is the 1 in 40 ratio, and what the union is doing about that, and also cabin air quality. So very quickly, I'm just going to touch on cabin air quality. This has been something that's been raised by members recently, and I just wanted to let everyone know that there's a lot of work that has been done on cabin air quality at the union over the years. In fact, we were all lined up to have a network of labs across the country that would be able to take blood samples so that people could get proof of exposure to tricresyl phosphates in fume events, which would be very helpful for workers' compensation claims, and just medical follow-up when there's a fume event, or some people call them smelly sock events on board. And tons of work was done on that in 2012. And then, unfortunately, the University of Nebraska, the lab that was doing all the research and had developed the test, ran out of money. So the air quality rep at the airline division of CUPE had been doing quite a bit of work. Her name's Karen Galenick, and she'd been doing quite a bit of work on this, trying to talk to them about whether their project was even going to go forward. And recently, she has been looking into starting a funding campaign to help them get the project back on track, because this is a rapid, simple blood test is the single most important way that our members will be able to prove that they've been exposed to hazardous substances in these fume events. And Karen had been talking with the American Flight Attendants Association as well about funding efforts. So from my spot at the Air Canada Component Committee, I've been in discussions with Karen, and I will be actually starting next week looking into the legal aspect of starting a funding campaign. And this is something that you will hopefully see us reaching out to you in the near future for your help and your support. And I think it's super important, and it'll be a way for everyone to get involved in an important health and safety project. So there's that to look forward to. And then when it comes to cabin crew complement, just as a health and safety rep, my message is always take your time and follow SOPs. Don't rush. Don't put yourself in a position where you're going to be doing things that could injure you just in order to cut corners and meet the expectations of customers, if it just can't be done. So, especially those of us flying domestic, ever since the 1 in 50 came in, it has been a challenge on certain flights, and we all feel that pressure sometimes to, we feel that pressure to finish the service before the seatbelt sign comes on. But it's really important to take your time. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. You write it up, you write an onboard report, and you won't be penalized for that. And report those situations when you find you can't actually do the service. Sometimes even the people at the company don't realize that. They're in an office. So it's very important to communicate it to them, and also to communicate your issues, the difficulties you're experiencing with the crew complements to us at the union. And I think Michelle, you can touch a little more on that issue as well.
Thank you, Jordan. Yes, as the component with the COCP, the Council of Union Component Presidents of the 7 airlines that are part of the airline division, we have begun to work with QP National to relaunch the 1 in 40 campaign now that the new liberal government are in place. I also have a meeting next month with Marc Garneau. Marc Garneau used to be our astronaut in Canada, who's now an MP, member of parliament. So if there's someone who will understand our world of aviation and also the fatigue. So what we are looking at is to relaunching and rebranding the campaign. We are looking for a wider theme now. Currently, we are thinking about safer skies. And this campaign would include basically the passengers ratio, the 1 in 40 passengers ratio, the cosmic radiation, and also the aerotoxic syndrome. You may are making a good point with Karen Galanik, who's our representative on the cabin air quality for the COCP. I invited her. We are meeting with COCP and all the other airlines, the president from all the other airlines, with QP National also, and we're meeting on March 15. She will come to do a presentation to start a funding campaign on air quality. Also, from the COCP point of view, we have rewrote the bylaws recently, and we will expand the health and safety committees in terms of trainings. Before we used to have one representative, and now we will take representative from all groups in order to be able to train as many people and to trigger and share the information also with our members. And we're working with Janet Dassingers, our researcher, Troy Winters also, who has a wealth of knowledge on the health and safety. I also invited Jordan to that meeting. So you will see very soon this new campaign that we will be relaunching. And also I will keep you informed with my meeting with Mr. Garneau. Jordan, I want to touch a point when you were saying about the cosmic radiation, because we had lots of members that were concerned about the letters that they were receiving from the employer. I want to reiterate that these letters are just to inform you that you are close to reach the intervention level, the 6 millisievert. And these meetings are simply to inform you that you might want to reconsider changing your bidding pattern, for example, for a couple of months to find a way to reduce your exposition. But it's at this point, I just want to make sure that everybody understands that they're not forcing any pattern of bidding on us. They're just being cautious as informing their employees that they're at a high level. One of the questions that is very often asked also is if the exposition on the 787 with this new composite of plastic and iron, if there's a higher exposition. I asked the question, and the answer is yes, but it's slightly higher exposition. So this is something that we were asked very often. So basically, when you were saying 6 millisievert, this is over a year.
It's a rolling 12-month period, yes. So if within the last, let's say it's June, or we can just say March since we're in March. If between March last year and today you had almost reached 6 millisieverts, you could receive one of these letters from the employer saying, just so you're aware, we've noticed that you're approaching the 6 millisievert limit, or it might say that you've gone over 5 millisieverts, depending on the letter you receive, and just saying if you'd like to speak to a manager and come in for a meeting, we suggest you do that. like you were saying, Michelle, it's not a disciplinary letter. It's nothing to be scared of. It's really the employer trying to do their part to educate you about something that could potentially affect your health, and to help you find options to reduce it. So like I said, I really do encourage anyone who gets those letters to take the time and to actually go in and speak with their manager, or at the very least, if that's not possible, some of us are very busy on our days off, to have a call with their managers, and if you want your QP rep there, they can put you on a conference call. So that's always an option too.
Excellent. Okay, and maybe just to recap, remember, you have the right to know, the right to participate, and the right to refuse dangerous good. And if you are in a situation on an airplane that you think that your life is in danger, remember that you have Chapter 2 in your 356. At the back, you have a chart where you will get all the information of the procedures of what to do if you want to exercise your right to refuse dangerous work. So we're going to take some questions on the side. I saw a question earlier. Can we avoid, from Michelle, can one avoid solar flares?
Okay, so the long story short for that is no, you can't avoid solar flares. The sun flares up when it wants to flare up, and but like I said, it doesn't always mean that you're going to be exposed to significantly more cosmic radiation than you would normally be. And that's actually something that is very closely monitored by the company. Solar flares, often more so than with cosmic radiation, they have an effect on, for example, radio transmission, and they can create blackout zones for radio transmissions. And so sometimes, for example, if you do Asia flights, you'll end up taking a longer route that doesn't take you over the pole, and it's because they're avoiding those high latitudes due to radio interference. And what that does is that also puts you at a latitude in your flight where you're going to have a slightly lower exposure to cosmic radiation, because it is affected by how close your exposure to cosmic radiation is affected by the latitude that you fly at. So generally speaking, when there are solar flares, we aren't flying over the poles directly. So, but you can't avoid them. They happen, and sometimes you'll hear about them in the news if there's a particularly large solar flare. But they happen all the time, smaller ones. It's a complicated. I've read papers about it before, and it's very complicated how they affect our exposure. But what we have seen in the past is that people who are monitoring their exposure to cosmic radiation haven't seen an overall spike in their yearly exposure when there has been a solar flare. And we are exposed. We fly when there's solar flares. But something to consider too is that 11-year cycle I mentioned earlier. We go through years where our overall exposure to cosmic radiation is much, much lower just because of the solar cycle, and years where our exposure is going to be higher because of the solar cycle. And that doesn't have anything to do with solar flares. It's science, and the reality is that we do fly 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. But it's something that you can track using PC Air, and you can look at your exposure. So if there was a solar flare and you notice, oh, in June I had a higher exposure, then by looking at the results in the PC Air system, you can then, for example, perhaps decide to alter your bidding for a month or two to ensure that your overall exposure remains where you want it to be at the end of the year.
Okay, I will take some question on the sidebar. There's a question from Michelle. The company is proposing a plastic sleeve to be worn with the new uniform while in the galley. can we compel the company to not consider using these plastic sleeves, as they are not appeared to add anything to one's health and safety? Michelle, this is a comment that is common. I already heard it on many occasions already. Today we are about to send a bulletin about to talk about the uniform, the testers now that you will see online, and I invite you to all send your comment. I will put some information, contact information, where you can send your information. You can tell the testers, you can go on Yammer with the employer, or to send it direct to us. We will be compiling this information and present it to the employer. Next question from Michelle again. All flying will go to wide-body aircraft such as the 787. What if it's not realistic to change your flying? Well, not all flying. We will receive many aircraft like 37, 787, but we also are buying the 737 MAX. We have the new C-Series also, 45 aircrafts that are coming from the C-Series. So there will be an option in the future with the 737. And I think, maybe you want to talk, Jordan. I was reading something, sometimes going west, there's a high exposition from, example, Vancouver, Toronto, Vancouver. Once we go, or is the opposite around, or it's going east?
Well, you're unfortunately, a lot of the flying we do in Canada, if you read into cosmic radiation, a lot of the domestic flying we do, you're kind of at a high level, one of the higher levels of exposure, just because of our geographical location. We're a northern country, and the closer you get to the poles, the higher your exposure is going to be on a flight. So a Montreal-Vancouver flight, for example, normally takes an arc that takes us over the northern prairies, or even the southern parts of the territories. So you're in that area where you would get a higher dose than if you were flying near the equator, and that's just a consequence of where we are in Canada, and the exposure is also dependent on altitude. So for those of you who do go into PCR and have done some rapid airs, for example, I'm junior, so I do a real mix of flying, and you'll look at rapid airs, and you could have a day with a 4-hour credit of rapid airs, and you almost have zero exposure to cosmic radiation, because a lot of those, a significant part of a rapid air flight is not at cruise. So here, I'm zooming in here, sorry. But a significant part of the rapid air flight is at a lower altitude, and so you have a lower exposure. So that's something that's an interesting way if you want to try to reduce your exposure. Bid some shorter flights, because a greater portion of that flight will be during the cruise or descent phase, where you have a lower exposure.
Also, just to remind you that all these webinars are recorded, so they will be available to the members for viewing after. We are getting close to 1 hour. Dominic posted a link from the NASA on solar flare that is available there to get more information on solar. And also, Joe Silva is asking, short sleeve for men, heard they will not be an option. Cruesh question, does the company include travel time when scheduling layovers? Many of us have RSW layovers that are 10 hours and 30 minutes in length. Is it possible to get 8 hours prone rest when you include travel time?
Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe somewhere it lurks in our contract that we are supposed to we should receive 8 hours of prone rest. That's key card in hand at the hotel. It's been a while since I was actually involved in the union office side of the union, but is that correct?
The prone rest, there's the 10 hours, like layover 10 hours, but the prone rest was something that we were trying to get. No, I think it's like an
okay.
I will have to double check that, I'm not positive, but Joe, I will get back to you in an email on that with more details on that. Also, I want to, for any of you who have questions for Jordan, you can reach Jordan at sante.health at accomponent.ca. Also, you can always access your local health and safety representative. Please stop by, just say hello or report everything, and especially when you report something on board, make sure that your health and safety rep get a copy. Make sure you make a photocopy and you deliver a copy of your report to your health and safety rep. Is there any other question? We still have 5 minutes before we finish, or is there anything else that you would like to talk, Jordan?
Well, actually, going back to cosmic radiation, I know Dominic posted a link there. But if all of you do go to the PCR website, there is a wealth of knowledge listed right there, and there's a bunch of links to other sites if you want to read up further on cosmic radiation, and it's a very interesting thing to read about if you have the time and you have the interest. So I would encourage everyone to do that. Knowledge is power. So you do have that resource as well on pcair.com.
And on our side, we will reissue. I remember writing a bulletin in 2013 when it was the implementation of this PCR system. We produced a bulletin to inform our members and colleagues how the system is working, how to access it, and what it was. We will reissue another bulletin to explain what exactly is expected with this system. But again, please don't be too worried about that. People were receiving letters, they were worried. There's nothing to worry. It's just the company who's informing you that you are reaching a high level and that you should consider maybe changing your bidding pattern for the next month or so. But like Jordan is saying, sometimes a bit of short flying reduce the exposition and reduce your millisievert.
Now, Michelle, there are some comments coming in that we may have forgotten to answer a question about the short sleeve issue with the new uniform. I don't know if you want to speak to that. I can, but if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Which one is short sleeve in regards to that we will have? Yeah, go ahead.
It's there was a question about a lack of a short sleeve shirt option for men, and then Michelle also added for women as well, because I think it's long sleeves currently for both men and women. It's just that the women have access to a short sleeve dress.
Yes.
But the shirts are currently they're long sleeve only.
I would say, Joe, this is, again, a comment to make on the email that we're just going to send. Please send us your comment. This is a comment feedback that I already received. There's people who their body temperature goes higher than others, and they don't feel comfortable into a long sleeve shirt. They absolutely need a short sleeve. So this is something that was already reported to us, but please send your feedback, because the more feedback we get from the membership, the more the company will have to listen that this is an important need for some of you.
And from my perspective as a health and safety rep, I have actually entered into a conversation about that with the employer side on the committee as well, raising it as a concern. It's being addressed on different levels right now, so we'll have to see where it goes. But the key is reporting.
On a side note, also, we have a bulletin coming on that. But last week, I was there with Edith at the launching of the new uniform for the testers. We also have invited our uniform committee, appointed 2 co-chairs, Jennifer Agmont and Philippe Rousseau. They were there with us. I also invited Jordan with us that day. So we're monitoring this uniform development very closely. Despite we were not involved since the inception, but now we will be monitoring and gathering, compiling all your feedback to make sure that the company will make the right choices. I think I can say now that the red vest seems to not be popular, the women's vest with the back red back. So I think this is already a decision that it's gone, you know, the gray, it's much nicer. So they are listening. They are looking for your constructive feedback, positive or negative. But we ask you to please remember just to be respectful towards the brand and also towards the designer. So, but stay tuned. I will send you a bulletin on that very shortly on how to proceed to send your feedback. So, Jordan, thank you so much. It was a great presentation. Hey guys, I think you forgot, yeah, okay, we will cover that. So I want to thank also the Health and Safety Committee that are at the local. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you. Very often, you know, it's in uphill battles and we don't see all the fights and the efforts that are making behind the scene to make our life better. So thanks to the entire team, and Jordan, welcome on board. We're happy to have you, and we look forward to be working with you. So thank you, everyone, and we'll send you another invitation next month. We have a different subject. We're still deciding which pertinent subjects we will choose for you. So thank you for your participation, and have a great day. Have a nice weekend, and see you all soon. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.